He was standing at the counter when Elias finally understood. The letters weren't sorted by name. They were sorted by date. And the one with Elias's name on it was already sealed. Well, now, you came back. Reckon I knew you would. Folks always do, once they find this place. It's a particular kind of tired that brings a person to the redacted archives. Not the kind of tired that a good meal fixes, no. The kind that sits behind your eyes and presses, gentle and steady, like a thumb on a bruise. The kind that only goes away when somebody older than you starts talking low and slow, and the night outside your window starts to feel less like a threat and more like a quilt somebody's draped over the whole world. So you lay yourself down, and I'll do the talking. Tonight's case file comes to us from the eastern hollows of Omen Ridge, a stretch of mountain that most county maps don't bother drawing in full. Not from ignorance, mind you. The cartographers knew it was there. They just had a habit of leaving certain places half-finished. A dotted line where a road should be. A blank where a valley ought to sit. As if the mountain itself had leaned over the drafting table and said, "Leave that part alone." The file concerns a man named Elias Thorne, 34 years old, a rural mail carrier out of Harlan County. Good man by all accounts, punctual, kept to himself in the way that people who've seen something they can't explain tend to do. He filed his account with the County Historical Office in the winter of 2019, then moved away, somewhere flat, somewhere without trees, and didn't leave a forwarding address. This is his story. We tell it as he told it. We change nothing. Now then, you just close your eyes and let the mountain have you for a little while. Elias Thorne had run the rural route on the eastern face of Omen Ridge for going on 6 years before the fog showed him what it had been hiding. He knew that stretch of road the way you know an old scar, by feel, without looking. Every switchback, every washout, every mailbox that leaned a little more to the left each spring, like it was listening for something down in the hollow. He'd driven it in ice storms and in the purple heat of August. He'd driven it half asleep, which on Omen Ridge the old-timers will tell you is a dangerous thing to be. They say the mountain thinks more clearly than we do when the fog is up. That it has a kind of slow, cold intelligence that doesn't operate on human time. That the fog isn't weather, not exactly. It comes up out of certain folds in the rock, low seams where the stone creases like the page of a book, and it breathes in and out, patient. Elias had always half believed that. After November the 14th, he believed it completely. It was a Tuesday, a gray, close morning, the kind where the sky and the ridge look made of the same material, and the trees stand around in the mist like they're waiting for something to be announced. Elias had 3 last pieces of mail to deliver: a water bill for the Callum farm, a seed catalog for old Ruth Pritchard, and a slim white envelope addressed to a name he didn't recognize at a road number that wasn't on his route sheet. 14.5. Route 9, 14.5. Now there's no such address. Elias knew that. Between 14, the old Breck property, vacant since the 90s, and 15, which was a pull-off where teenagers sometimes parked, there was nothing but a stand of hemlocks so old and dense they'd grown into one another overhead and made a kind of tunnel. He'd driven through it 1,000 times. There was nothing in there but shadow and root and the sound of the wind doing something low and conversational to itself. But that morning the fog was up, and through the hemlocks, past where the road should have ended in nothing, there was a light. He'd tell you later, and he told it carefully, the way a man tells a thing he's rehearsed many times to make sure it still sounds sane, that he didn't feel afraid right away. That was the strange part. He felt something else, something closer to recognition, like the feeling you get when you walk into a room and know, before you can say why, that someone you haven't seen in a long time is about to come around the corner. He took the envelope. He walked into the hemlocks. The tunnel of trees was longer than it had any right to be. He walked for what he reckoned was 2-3 minutes, and the light ahead didn't get bigger the way a real light should. It just waited there, pale and yellowish and perfectly still, like something painted on the fog. The temperature dropped, not sharply, just that quiet, steady dropping you feel in basements and root cellars, the kind that means the ground is older than the air above it. And then the hemlocks ended. He was standing in the fold of the mountain he had never seen. A shallow bowl of ground, maybe 50 yards across, ringed by stone that rose up on 3 sides like the walls of something half-built and then abandoned. The fog sat in it like water in a cupped hand, thigh-high, moving in slow circles that had nothing to do with any wind. And at the far edge of the bowl, against the stone wall, there was a building, small, 1 story, wood gone gray as old bone, a pitched roof with the shingles curled up at the corners like dry lips, a single window with a light behind it, that same yellowish, waiting light. And above the door, a hand-lettered sign, the paint so faded it was nearly gone. Post office, Omen Ridge Station. Now Elias Thorne was not a man who went into strange buildings in folds of mountains he'd never seen before. He was also a mail carrier, with a piece of mail addressed to this very station. He went in. The inside smelled of cedar and dried ink and something else underneath. Something older, closer to the smell of old paper left too long in a drawer. The kind of smell that gets into your sinuses and stays there, sweet and faintly wrong. The room was narrow. A wooden counter ran across the width of it. Behind the counter, floor-to-ceiling wooden cubby holes, hundreds of them, each one fitted with a small envelope, each envelope neatly labeled in a handwriting so small and precise it made Elias's eyes ache to look at. And at the counter, sorting, the postmaster. Elias would struggle in his account to describe what he saw. He'd cross out words and start again. He settled finally on this. The postmaster was tall, too tall, bent at the waist to work at the counter the way a regular man might bend to look at something on a low shelf. He wore a gray uniform, the old-fashioned kind, brass buttons, a visor cap. His hands were long, very long, and they moved over the envelopes with a kind of rapid, precise delicacy, sorting and slotting and turning, never pausing, never hesitating. But it was the face, or the place where the face should have been, that broke the ordinary world open. There was no face, not a blankness, not a smooth surface. That would have been frightening in a way the mind could work with. No. The head of the postmaster was folded. Folded the way you might fold a sheet of paper to make something. An envelope, a bird, a box. Sharp creases, precise angles. The visor cap sat on top of what amounted to a series of geometric planes, and where the face should have been was simply a triangular depression, a fold pressed inward, the kind of hollow that suggests the shape of something without showing it. It caught the light at the edges of its creases. It was very, very still. The postmaster did not look up, but it spoke. Pick up or delivery. Elias put the envelope on the counter. His hand, he noted, did not shake. He was very proud of that. The postmaster took the envelope, held it to where its face was, to that angular, folded hollow, and then set it aside. It reached beneath the counter and produced another envelope, slid it across the wood toward Elias. There is a return piece, it said, for your route. Elias looked at the envelope. His name was on it. His name and his address, and in the corner where the return address should have been, A single word stamped in red ink. Sender. He didn't take it. He wanted to tell you he refused it out of instinct, out of some deep Appalachian gut sense that you do not accept strange mail from paper-folded men in impossible post offices. But the truth, as he told it, was simpler than that. He looked at the envelope with his name on it, and he felt the weight of what was inside. Not literally, not with his hands, but in the same way you sometimes know a thing before you're told it. A heavy, settled certainty, the kind that has no drama in it at all. He did not want to know his date. He turned around. He walked to the door. Behind him the sound of paper rustling, steady and patient, the sorting continuing without pause, without hurry. He walked back through the hemlocks. The tunnel, he noted, seemed shorter going out. The fog was already thinning. By the time he reached the truck, the morning had gone ordinary again, gray and close and utterly, blessedly mundane. Ruth Pritchard's seed catalog sat on the passenger seat, the Callum water bill, the route sheet with its sensible sequential numbers. He sat in the truck for a while. Then he finished his route. He filed his account that winter. He moved away in the spring. The county historical office still has his written statement in a manila folder in their archive. The archivist who cataloged it noted one thing in the margin, a small observation made almost as an afterthought. The envelope Elias had delivered to Omen Ridge Station, the one addressed in handwriting none of them recognized, when they asked Elias who it had been addressed to, he was quiet for a long time. "I don't reckon," he said finally, "that it had a name on it. I reckon it had a description." He wouldn't say what the description was. He moved away shortly after. Somewhere flat. Somewhere with no trees to speak of. And if there are letters that arrive at his new address now and then, slim envelopes in a small and precise handwriting, well, he's never said. That's the account of Elias Thorne, as best as we can tell it. I've turned it over in my mind many a night, the way you turn a smooth stone in your pocket without quite meaning to. I keep coming back to the same thought, the one that seems to hang in the air of this particular story, the way the smell of old ink hangs in a closed room. We spend a good deal of our lives afraid of not knowing things, when things will end, when they'll begin, what's waiting in the fold of the mountain, what our name looks like on an envelope we were never supposed to see. Elias Thorne walked away from that knowledge, and I reckon most nights that was the bravest thing he ever did. You don't need to know your date either, friend. Not tonight. Tonight you're just a person lying in the dark in a warm place while the world outside goes on doing whatever worlds do when no one's watching. The fog is out there somewhere, breathing slow against the ridge lines. The old trees are talking in their low, root-deep language. And somewhere, in a fold of the mountain, in a building with a sign gone gray as bone, a figure with a folded face is sorting through its cubby holes, patient as paper, patient as time. But you are not on his route tonight. You just sleep. If you want to find your way back to the redacted archives, you know where we are. Subscribe if you've a mind to. Leave a comment in the dark if something in tonight's file stirred something in you. We read every one. We keep 'em on file. Everything gets filed eventually. Now then, close your eyes. You know, there's a thing the old mountain folk used to do before sleep. Not a prayer exactly, not a ritual, just a habit of mind that got passed down through the generations the way most useful things do, quietly, without much ceremony. They'd lie down and they'd name what they could hear. Wind in the high timber, creek water moving over smooth stone somewhere down in the hollow, the house settling around them, ticking and breathing, the way old wood does when the temperature drops and everything contracts just slightly, pulling itself inward, holding itself together. They reckoned that if you could name the sounds around you, you were still part of the world, still tethered, still real. So you try that now. Whatever you can hear, right where you are. The hum of something electrical, maybe. Rain if it's raining. The quiet of a house at rest. Your own breath, slow and even, going in and going out, the way it is done every night of your life, without you ever once having to ask it to. You are somewhere warm. You are somewhere safe. The mountain is a long ways off from where you're lying, and the fog tonight is somebody else's fog entirely. The sorting is done for the evening. Your name is right where it belongs. Now then, let yourself go under.